The Galactic Council had seen many species join their ranks over the past 10,000 years. They had welcomed the Valorians with their beautiful wings and gentle songs. They had embraced the Korthans with their massive bodies and peaceful ways. They had even accepted the mysterious Zilthians who communicated through colors rather than words, but nothing had prepared them for the humans. When the first human ship arrived at the edge of known space, the Council expected another primitive species. The ship was small. It was ugly. It was held together with what appeared to be metal patches and strange adhesive materials. Councillor Vexthan, a respected elder of the Valorian people, looked at the vessel through his viewing screen and shook his feathered head. "This cannot be a space-faring civilization," he said to his colleagues. "Their ship appears to be falling apart." The other council members agreed. They sent a standard greeting message and waited for the response. When the humans replied, their language was rough and unrefined. Their transmission quality was poor. Everything about them seemed backward compared to the elegant civilizations of the Galactic Union. But the Council had rules. Any species that achieved faster-than-light travel must be given the opportunity to join. And somehow, against all logic, these humans had managed to reach the stars. The first human delegation arrived at Council Station 3 weeks later. There were 5 of them. They wore simple clothing made from woven plant fibers. They carried small electronic devices that looked ancient compared to the holographic interfaces used by other species. Their leader was a woman named Dr. Sarah Chen, who introduced herself as a chief engineer. "We are honored to meet you," Dr. Chen said through a translation device that crackled with static. "We have traveled a long way to find other life in the universe." Councillor Vexthan extended his wing in the traditional greeting of his people. "Welcome to the Galactic Union. We are curious about your species. Tell us, how long have your people been traveling between stars?" Dr. Chen checked her primitive device. "About 40 years, sir. We developed our first faster-than-light engine in what we call the year 2157. The council members exchanged glances. 40 years was nothing. Most species spent centuries perfecting their technology before making contact with other civilizations. The Valorians had spent 800 years in careful development. The Korthans had taken over 1,000. Yet here were these humans, barely out of their planetary cradle, already knocking on the galactic door. "That is remarkably quick," said Councillor Zhatrath, a Korthan whose massive form filled his chair like a small mountain. "How did you accomplish this feat?" Dr. Chen smiled, and her team members smiled with her. "We are engineers," she said simply. "We solve problems." The council assigned the humans to a small section of Station 7. They were given basic quarters and access to the public areas. They were not allowed near the technology centers or the research facilities. This was standard procedure for new species. They had to prove themselves trustworthy before receiving full access. But the humans did not seem interested in gaining access to anything. Instead, they spent their first days wandering the station, looking at everything with wide eyes. They asked questions constantly. They wanted to know how the doors worked. They wanted to understand the lighting systems. They were fascinated by the automated food dispensers. Crix, a young Zilthian who worked in maintenance, was assigned to answer their questions. His body shifted through shades of purple and blue as he tried to explain simple concepts to the curious humans. "The door operates on a sensor system," Crix said, his colors forming patterns of patience. "When a biological signature approaches, the door opens automatically." Dr. Chen nodded. She pulled out her small device and began pressing buttons. "And what powers the sensor? Is it connected to the main power grid, or does it have an independent source?" Crix flickered orange with confusion. No one had ever asked him that before. I do not know, it simply works." "May I look at the panel?" Dr. Chen asked. Crix saw no harm in this. The door sensor was basic technology. Every species in the Union used similar systems. He opened the small panel beside the door and stepped back. Dr. Chen leaned in close. She studied the wires and components inside. Her team gathered around her, each of them looking at the simple mechanism as if it were the most interesting thing in the universe. "Interesting," Dr. Chen muttered. "Very interesting." She closed the panel and thanked Crix for his help. The Zilthian reported the interaction to his supervisor, who dismissed it as harmless curiosity. New species always had questions. The humans would learn how things worked eventually. Over the next few weeks, the humans continued their exploration of the station. They looked at everything. They touched panels and studied screens. They asked endless questions about systems that no one else thought about. Why did the ventilation work this way? How was waste recycled? What materials were used in construction? The other species on the station began to find the humans amusing. They were like children, fascinated by things that adults took for granted. The Valorians would flutter their wings in gentle laughter when humans gathered around a simple light fixture. The Corthans would rumble with amusement when humans spent hours studying a water purification system. "They are simple beings," Counselor Vexthan commented during a council session. "Harmless but limited. I suspect they will remain a minor species in our union." The other counselors agreed. The humans had potential, perhaps, but they were too far behind to ever catch up with the advanced civilizations. It would take them centuries to reach the level of the Valorians or the Corthans. By then, the galaxy would have moved on to even greater heights. But 3 months after their arrival, something unexpected happened. Dr. Chen requested a meeting with the station commander, a Valorian named Sithon who had served for over 200 years. She arrived at his office with her team and a collection of strange objects they had built from materials they had found in the public areas. "Commander Sithon," Dr. Chen said, "we have been studying your station's systems. We hope you do not mind, but we have noticed some inefficiencies that we believe we can improve." Sithon raised his feathered eyebrows. "Inefficiencies? Our systems have been perfected over thousands of years. They function at optimal capacity." Dr. Chen held up one of her strange objects. It was a small device made from scrap metal and recycled components. "This is a modified power converter. We built it using materials from your waste processing center. When connected to a standard power junction, it increases energy output by approximately 37%. Sithon stared at the device. "That is impossible." "We tested it on the auxiliary power grid in Section C," Dr. Chen explained. "The results were consistent across multiple trials. We have documented everything." She handed over a data chip. Sithon inserted it into his console and began reviewing the information. His eyes widened as he read through the technical data. The humans had indeed modified a basic power junction, and the results were exactly as they claimed. 37% more efficient, using scrap materials, built in just 3 months by a species that had only been traveling through space for 40 years. Sithon looked at Dr. Chen and her team. They stood before him with simple smiles on their faces, as if they had done nothing remarkable at all. "How did you do this?" he asked. Dr. Chen shrugged. "We looked at the problem and found a solution. That is what engineers do." Sithon leaned back in his chair. His wings folded against his back as he considered the implications of what he was seeing. The humans had just improved technology that his own people had used for millennia. They had done it with trash, and they seemed to think it was the most natural thing in the world. "I believe," Sithon said slowly, "that we need to speak with the Council about this." The message went out that same day. The Galactic Council was about to learn something important about the newest members of their union. The humans were not primitive at all. They were simply different, and that difference was about to change everything. The emergency council session was called the following morning. All 12 members gathered in the Great Chamber, their holographic displays filled with data from Station 7. Counselor Vex then presided over the meeting, his feathers ruffled with agitation. "Let me understand this correctly," he said. "The humans have modified our power systems without authorization." Commander Sithon stood before the council, his wings tucked respectfully. They did use unauthorized access to the auxiliary grid in Section C, however. I must report that the modification worked exactly as they claimed. Our engineers have verified the results. The power output increased by 37%. Counselor Zhrath shifted his massive body. "That is significant. Our Korthan engineers have worked on power efficiency for generations. The best improvement we achieved was 12%, and that took 50 years of research." "The humans did this in 3 months, Sithon confirmed, using materials from our waste processing center. The council members looked at each other. Colors shifted on Zilthian representatives. Wings fluttered among the Valorians. The Korthans sat very still, which was their way of showing deep thought. "We must examine these humans more closely," Vexthan decided. "Bring their chief engineer before the council." Dr. Chen arrived within the hour. She wore the same simple clothing as before, and she carried her small electronic device. She did not seem nervous as she faced the 12 most powerful beings in the galaxy. "Dr. Chen," Vexthan began, "you have made an unauthorized modification to our station's power grid. This could be considered a serious offense. What do you have to say for yourself?" Dr. Chen nodded. "I apologize for not following proper procedures, Counselor. We were excited about our findings and wanted to test them quickly. In human culture, we have a saying, it is easier to ask forgiveness than permission. We should have been more respectful of your rules." "Tell us how you achieved this improvement," Counselor Zhrath said. "Our best engineers could not do what you did." Dr. Chen considered the question. "May I ask a question first? How long have your species been using this power system?" "The current design is approximately 4,000 years old," Zhrath answered. "It was developed by the Valorians and adopted by all Union species." "And in 4,000 years, has anyone tried to improve it?" The council members looked at each other again. The question seemed strange. "The system works perfectly," Vexthan said. "Why would we try to improve something that already functions?" Dr. Chen smiled gently. "That is the difference, I think. Humans never stop trying to improve things. Even when something works, we ask ourselves, can it work better? Can it be faster, cheaper, more efficient? We have a phrase for this too. We call it making things good enough for now." "Good enough for now," repeated a Zilthian counselor, his body turning curious shades of green. "Yes, nothing is ever truly finished for humans. Every solution is temporary. Every design can be redesigned. We are always looking for the next improvement, the next innovation, the next step forward." Counselor Vexthan leaned forward in his chair. "But surely there comes a point when a thing is perfected, when no further improvement is possible." Dr. Chen shook her head. "We do not believe in perfection, Counselor. We believe in progress. There is always room to grow, always something new to learn, always a better way to do things. The moment we stop looking for improvements is the moment we stop moving forward." The council sat in silence for a long moment. This was a fundamental difference in thinking. The species of the Galactic Union had spent millennia building systems and technologies that worked. Once something worked, it was considered complete. Resources were then directed toward new projects. The idea of constantly revising and improving existing systems was alien. "Your way of thinking is unusual," Zhrath finally said. "But the results speak for themselves. The Council would like to offer your team access to our technology centers. We wish to see what other improvements you might suggest." Dr. Chen's eyes lit up. "We would be honored, Counselor. There are many things we have observed that could benefit from some adjustments." The decision was made that day. The human engineering team was given unprecedented access to the station's systems. They were assigned a team of Union engineers to work alongside them and document their methods. What followed would be remembered in galactic history as the beginning of the Great Innovation. The humans started with small things. They improved the efficiency of lighting systems by redesigning the power distribution. They modified the water recycling process to reduce energy consumption by half. They created new filters for the ventilation system that cleaned the air more effectively while using less material. Each improvement seemed simple after it was explained. The Union engineers would look at the modifications and wonder why they had never thought of such things. The answers were often embarrassingly obvious once pointed out. "Your water pipes run in straight lines," Dr. Chen explained to a group of Valorian engineers. "This is elegant and easy to construct, but water does not like to make sharp turns. Each corner creates resistance and requires more energy to pump. If we curve the pipes slightly at the junctions, we reduce resistance by 20%. The Valorian engineers examined the modified pipes. The curves were gentle, almost unnoticeable, but the measurements confirmed the improvement. "We have been using straight pipes for 6,000 years, one engineer said, his wings drooping with embarrassment. "This seems so obvious now." "That is the nature of innovation," Dr. Chen said kindly. "Sometimes we are too close to see the simple solutions. Fresh eyes can be valuable." Word of the human improvement spread quickly through the station. Then it spread to other stations. Then it reached the homeworlds of the Union species. Engineers from across the galaxy began requesting information about human methods. They wanted to learn this strange art of constant improvement. The Council decided to expand the program. More human engineers were invited to join the Union. They were sent to different stations, different planets, different systems. Everywhere they went, they found things to improve. On the Corthan homeworld, human engineers redesigned the agricultural systems. They introduced techniques called crop rotation and companion planting that increased food production while reducing soil exhaustion. The Corthans had farmed the same way for 10,000 years. They had never considered that there might be a better method. On the Zilthian colony worlds, human engineers improved communication systems. They found that the color-based language of the Zilthians could be transmitted more efficiently using different frequencies of light. The improvement allowed Zilthians to communicate across greater distances with clearer signals. Even the proud Valorians accepted human assistance. Their great flying cities had used the same propulsion systems for millennia. Human engineers suggested modifications that made the cities more stable in high winds. They also reduced the energy required to keep the massive structures aloft. Each improvement led to new questions. Each solution revealed new problems to solve. The humans were never satisfied, never content to rest on their achievements. They always wanted to do more, learn more, improve more. The Galactic Council watched this transformation with growing amazement. In just 5 years, human engineers had done more to advance Union technology than any other species had accomplished in centuries, and they showed no signs of slowing down. "I believe I have misjudged these humans," Councillor Vexthan admitted during a council session. "They are not primitive at all, they are simply relentless." Councillor Zhatrath nodded his massive head. "They approach problems differently than we do. We seek perfection and then stop. They seek improvement and never stop. It is a powerful philosophy." The Zilthian councillor's body shifted through colors of agreement. "Perhaps we have been too satisfied with our achievements. Perhaps we have forgotten how to grow." The council made a historic decision that day. They would establish the first Galactic Innovation Institute, staffed by engineers from all species but led by humans. Its mission would be to apply human methods of continuous improvement to every aspect of Union technology. Dr. Chen was named the Institute's first director. She accepted the position with her usual humble smile. "We are honored by this opportunity," she said to the council. "But I want to be clear about something. We are not geniuses, we are not special, we are simply stubborn. We refuse to accept that anything is truly finished. That is our only secret." The counselors considered this statement. Stubbornness was not typically seen as a virtue among the refined species of the galaxy, but perhaps they were beginning to realize it should be. The human engineers were about to revolutionize galactic technology, and the galaxy was finally ready to watch and learn. 10 years passed since the establishment of the Galactic Innovation Institute. In that decade, human engineers transformed the foundations of Union technology. What had once been stable and unchanging now evolved rapidly, each improvement building upon the last in an endless cycle of advancement. Director Sarah Chen stood in the main hall of the Institute, watching as engineers from 12 different species worked side by side. Valorians consulted with humans over holographic displays. Corthans analyzed data alongside Zilthians. The barriers between species had faded as they united behind a common purpose: to make things better. "Director, we have completed the new transportation prototype," announced Marcus Rivera, one of the original human engineers who had arrived on that first crewed spaceship. Sarah looked at the schematics he presented. The new ship design was sleek and efficient, incorporating ideas from every species in the Union. Human ingenuity had combined with Valorian elegance, Corthan durability, and Zilthian precision. "How much faster than current vessels?" Sarah asked. 40% faster with 30% less fuel consumption, Marcus reported. "And the construction process uses recycled materials, reducing environmental impact." Sarah smiled. This was what human engineering was about. Not just improving one thing, but improving everything at once. Speed, efficiency, sustainability, and practicality all wrapped together in a single design. But the greatest challenge still lay ahead. The Union faced a problem that no amount of engineering had solved in 10,000 years. The outer regions of the galaxy were dying. The stars in these distant zones were fatting faster than expected. Ancient planets that had supported life for millions of years were now becoming cold and dark. Billions of beings across thousands of worlds faced extinction within the next few centuries if something was not done. The Council had called an emergency session to discuss this crisis. Sarah was summoned to present whatever solutions the Institute could offer. "Director Chen," Counselor Vexton said gravely, "you have performed miracles with our technology, but this problem may be beyond even your abilities. Stars cannot be fixed like power converters. The death of these suns is a natural process that we have always accepted as inevitable." Sarah stood before the council with her team behind her. They had spent months studying the problem, exploring possibilities that no one had considered before. "With respect, Counselor, we do not accept anything as inevitable," Sarah said. "We have been studying the dying stars, and we believe there is a solution, but it will require cooperation from every species in the Union." The Council listened as Sarah presented her plan. It was ambitious beyond anything attempted before. The humans proposed building a network of massive energy collectors that would gather power from healthy stars and redirect it to the dying ones. The collectors would need to span entire solar systems. They would need to operate continuously for centuries. They would need the combined resources and expertise of every civilization in the galaxy. "This is extraordinary," Counselor Zhrath said when Sarah finished. "You propose to save dying stars, to extend their lives beyond their natural span." "Yes," Sarah said simply, "we propose to fix the stars." The council debated for days. Some members argued that such a project was impossible. Others worried about unintended consequences. A few suggested that the natural death of stars was something to be accepted, not fought against. But in the end, the council voted to approve the project. The humans had earned their trust. If anyone could accomplish the impossible, it was these strange beings who refused to accept limitations. The project was named Operation Stellar Renewal. It would take 50 years to complete. It would require resources from every world in the Union, and it would need to succeed on the first attempt because there would be no second chance. Human engineers led the design effort. They worked alongside the best minds from every species, combining their knowledge and skills in unprecedented ways. The Valorians contributed their understanding of energy manipulation. The Korthans provided structural expertise that could withstand the forces near a star. The Zilthians offered their mastery of light and radiation. Sarah watched the collaboration with pride. This was what humanity brought to the galaxy. Not just their own innovations, but the ability to bring others together to achieve things no single species could accomplish alone. Construction began on the first energy collector in the 4th year of the project. It was built in orbit around a healthy young star named Velos Prime. The structure was so large that it could be seen from planets 3 systems away. Trillions of tons of material went into its construction. Millions of workers from dozens of species contributed their labor. When the collector was activated, it worked exactly as designed. Energy flowed from Velos Prime through quantum channels to a dying star 4,000 light-years away. The dying star brightened slightly, its fade slowing measurably. "It works," Marcus Rivera reported to the council, tears in his eyes. "The star is responding to the energy injection. At current rates, we can extend its life by several million years." The council chamber erupted in celebration. Species that had never touched now embraced each other. Colors flashed across Zilthian bodies in patterns of pure joy. Valorian songs filled the air. Even the stoic Korthans allowed themselves to rumble with happiness. Councillor Vexthan approached Sarah Chen after the celebration calmed. His ancient eyes studied her with new understanding. "When you first arrived," he said, "I thought your species was primitive and limited. I was a fool." Sarah shook her head. "You were not wrong, Counselor. We are primitive in many ways. Our ships are ugly. Our technology is rough. We make mistakes constantly, but we never give up. We never stop trying. That is the only advantage we have." "It is no small advantage," Vexthan replied. "You have shown us that progress does not end, that there is always more to achieve, that even death itself can be challenged." The construction of energy collectors continued across the galaxy. Each year brought new challenges and new solutions. Problems that seemed impossible were broken down into smaller problems, and those smaller problems were solved one by one. The human method of continuous improvement applied at a galactic scale. By the 20th year of the project, 50 collectors were operational. By the 30th year, there were 200. By the 40th year, the network had grown to cover half of the affected region. Dying stars were stabilizing. Cold worlds were warming. Civilizations that had prepared for extinction now planned for futures that stretched millions of years into the distance. Sarah Chen did not live to see the project completed. She passed away peacefully in the 42nd year, surrounded by friends from every species in the galaxy. Her funeral was attended by beings from 1,000 worlds. The Valorians sang songs of mourning that lasted 3 days. The Korthans carved her likeness into mountains on their homeworld. The Zilthians created a permanent light display in her honor that could be seen from space. But her legacy lived on. The institute she founded continued its work. The methods she championed spread to every corner of the galaxy. The simple philosophy of continuous improvement became the guiding principle of the entire Union. When Operation Stellar Renewal was finally completed in its 50th year, the galaxy celebrated as one. Stars that had been dying now burned bright. Worlds that had been doomed now thrived. Billions of lives had been saved not through acceptance of fate, but through stubborn refusal to give up. Marcus Rivera, now an old man himself, gave the final address to the Galactic Council. 50 years ago, many believed this project was impossible, he said. They said we could not fix stars. They said we had to accept the natural order. But we are human. We do not accept the impossible. We simply haven't found the solution yet. The council chamber was silent as his words sank in. Dr. Sarah Chen taught us that nothing is ever truly finished, Marcus continued. Every achievement is just the beginning of the next challenge. The stars we save today will eventually need saving again. And when that time comes, our descendants will find new solutions, new improvements, new ways to push back against the darkness. That is what it means to be engineers. That is what it means to be human. Marcus paused and looked around the chamber at the faces of friends he had worked with for decades. But today, we celebrate. We have done something that was considered impossible. We have changed the fate of the galaxy. And we have proven that stubbornness, creativity, and the refusal to accept limitations can overcome any obstacle. The celebration that followed lasted for weeks. It spread across every world in the Union. For the first time in galactic history, all species united in a single moment of triumph. And in the quiet corners of the Institute, young engineers from every species were already working on the next challenge, because nothing was ever truly finished. There was always room for improvement. There was always another problem to solve. The humans had revolutionized galactic technology. And now, the entire galaxy had learned to see the universe the way humans did, not as a collection of limitations, but as an endless frontier of possibilities waiting to be explored. 100 years after the first human ship arrived at Council Station 7, the galaxy was unrecognizable. The slow and steady civilizations that had remained unchanged for millennia now advanced at speeds that would have seemed impossible to their ancestors. Every year brought new discoveries, new technologies, new ways of understanding the universe. The great archives kept records of all these changes. In a vast hall at the center of the galaxy, historians from every species cataloged the transformation. They called this era the Age of Renewal, and they traced its beginning to a small team of human engineers who had looked at a door sensor and asked a simple question: can this work better? The current director of the Galactic Innovation Institute was a young Valorian named Sithkil, the great-grandson of Commander Sithon, who had first recognized human potential. He had been raised on stories of Dr. Sarah Chen and her remarkable engineers. He had studied their methods and absorbed their philosophy. In many ways, he thought more like a human than like his own people. Sithkil stood in his office, looking out at the stars. A message had just arrived from the far edge of the galaxy. A new species had been discovered. Their ship was small and ugly. Their technology was crude. They communicated through vibrations in the air that other species found difficult to understand. "They remind me of someone," Sithkil said to his assistant, a young human named James Chen, the great-great-grandson of Sarah Chen herself. James smiled. "I was thinking the same thing. Their ship looks a lot like the one my ancestors arrived in. Should we send a greeting delegation?" "I think we should do more than that," James said. "We should welcome them to the Institute immediately. Let them start learning and contributing right away. That is what would have helped my ancestors the most." Sithkil nodded. The old ways of the Union, the careful gatekeeping and slow integration, had been replaced by a more open approach. New species were now seen as sources of fresh perspectives rather than potential problems. Every civilization had something unique to offer, something that could combine with existing knowledge to create new possibilities. The new species was called the Thrum. They were small beings covered in fine fur that vibrated to produce their language. Their technology was indeed primitive by galactic standards, but their minds were quick and curious. Within weeks of arriving at the Institute, they had made their first contribution, a new method of analyzing vibrations that improved early warning systems for stellar instabilities. "Remarkable," said a Corthan engineer who reviewed their work. "We have studied vibrations for thousands of years, but we never considered this approach." The Thrum seemed confused by the praise. "It is simple," their leader said through a translation device. "We felt the problem and found its solution. Is this not what everyone does?" The engineers around them smiled. They had heard similar words before, spoken by humans who did not understand that their way of thinking was special. The galaxy continued to change and grow. Problems that had once seemed unsolvable yielded to persistent effort and creative thinking. Diseases that had plagued civilizations for ages were cured through collaborative research. Energy became abundant as new methods of generation were developed. Travel between stars became faster and safer with each passing year. But the most important change was not technological, it was philosophical. The species of the galaxy had learned to see themselves differently. They were no longer isolated civilizations traveling separate paths through history. They were partners in a shared journey of discovery. Every improvement benefited everyone. Every challenge was faced together. This unity was put to its greatest test 50 years after the Thrum arrived. Deep space sensors detected something at the edge of the galaxy. It was not a ship or a planet or a star. It was something else entirely, something that defied easy classification. The object appeared to be artificial. It was massive, larger than most solar systems. It did not move through space in the normal way but seemed to fold space around itself, appearing and disappearing at will. Most disturbing of all, it was heading toward the heart of the galaxy at tremendous speed. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from all species, now numbering over 50, gathered to discuss the threat. "We do not know what this object is or what it wants," Councillor Zatrath said. The ancient Korthan had lived long enough to see the entire transformation of the galaxy. His wisdom was valued above all others. But we must prepare for the possibility that its intentions are hostile. "Can we communicate with it?" asked the Thrum representative, whose vibrations created patterns of concern that others could feel even without understanding. "We have tried every known method," reported the head of communications. "There has been no response. Either they cannot hear us or they choose not to answer." Sithkel stepped forward. He had grown old in the service of the Institute, but his mind was still sharp. "If we cannot communicate, we must prepare to defend ourselves. But I want to be clear. Our goal should be understanding, not destruction. Perhaps this object is not an enemy at all. Perhaps it is simply different, like every species that has ever joined the Union." "And if it is an enemy?" someone asked. "Then we will do what humans taught us to do," Sithkel said. "We will find a solution, we will adapt, we will improve, we will not give up." The Institute mobilized as never before. Engineers from every species worked together to develop new technologies, shields that could withstand unprecedented forces, sensors that could analyze the strange object more closely, weapons that could be used as a last resort. The spirit of continuous improvement drove them forward. Every failure became a lesson. Every setback became motivation. James Chen, now an old man himself, led the team studying the object's strange method of travel. "It folds space," he explained to the council. "We have theoretical knowledge of this process, but we have never been able to achieve it. If we could understand their technology, we could travel anywhere in the universe instantly." "How do we study something we cannot approach?" Councillor Vex then asked. The Valorian was impossibly ancient now, sustained by medical technology that humans had helped develop, but he remained sharp and engaged. "We send a probe," James said. "A very small one designed to be insignificant. We load it with sensors and transmitters, and we let it be absorbed by the object. Whatever we learn will be transmitted back to us." The probe was built in record time. It was launched toward the approaching object, and the galaxy waited. 3 days later, the probe made contact. The data it sent back was astonishing. The object was not a weapon or a ship. It was a library A vast collection of knowledge gathered from across the universe over billions of years, traveling from galaxy to galaxy, offering its contents to any civilization advanced enough to receive them. They are not invaders, James reported with wonder in his voice. They are teachers. They have been waiting for us to reach the point where we could understand their message. The library contained information beyond anything the galaxy had imagined, technologies that made their most advanced achievements seem primitive, sciences that explained mysteries they had never been able to solve, histories of civilizations that had risen and fallen in distant corners of the universe. But most importantly, the library contained a message, a greeting from beings who had long since transcended physical form, who watched over the universe and nurtured civilizations that showed potential. "We have observed your galaxy for many thousands of years," the message said. "For most of that time, you grew slowly, achieving great things but then stopping to rest on your achievements. We had nearly moved on to other regions of space, judging that you had reached your limits. But then something changed. A new species arrived, one that saw no limits, only challenges. They taught you to question everything, to improve constantly, to never accept that anything was truly finished. In a single century, you accomplished more than you had in the previous 10,000 years. We offer you our knowledge freely. Use it wisely. Continue to grow. And one day, perhaps, you will join us in watching over the universe and nurturing the next generation of civilizations. Remember, nothing is ever truly finished. There is always room for improvement. There is always another step to take." The message ended, but its impact continued forever. The galaxy had been noticed by powers beyond their imagination. They had been judged worthy because of their willingness to grow and change and improve. And at the heart of that transformation were the humans, the stubborn, creative, endlessly curious beings who had arrived in an ugly little ship and asked if things could work better. Sithko called one final gathering at the Institute. Representatives from every species attended, filling the vast hall with diversity that would have been unimaginable a century earlier. "We have received a great gift," he said, "knowledge beyond our wildest dreams, technology that will allow us to achieve things we never thought possible. But the message was clear. What made us worthy was not our achievements, but our willingness to keep achieving, our refusal to stop growing, our constant pursuit of improvement." He paused and looked out at the faces before him. Valorians and Korthans, Zilthians and Thrum, humans and dozens of others, all united in a shared purpose. The humans who first came to us were not the strongest species or the wisest or the most advanced, but they had something more valuable. They never gave up. They never stopped trying. They never accepted that anything was impossible, and they taught us to do the same. The hall erupted in applause that took many forms. Wings fluttered, bodies rumbled, colors flashed, vibrations filled the air. Each species expressed joy in their own way, but the feeling was universal. The Terran engineers had revolutionized galactic technology. They had done it not through superior intelligence or secret knowledge, but through simple stubbornness and endless creativity. They had shown the galaxy that progress was not a destination but a journey, that improvement was not occasional but constant, that the only true limit was the willingness to stop trying. And now, with the wisdom of the universe at their fingertips, they were ready to take the next step. The age of renewal was ending. The age of transcendence was about to begin. And somewhere, in whatever place the departed waited, Dr. Sarah Chen smiled with satisfaction. The work was never truly finished. And that was exactly the point.